New tonight, Poland and NATO scrambling military jets as Russia launches a massive assault on Ukraine from the air.
Tonight, NATO jets scrambled, Polish airspace violated, and a new wave of Russian strikes on Ukraine. This isn't just another escalation. It's a test of NATO's will and readiness. Let's break down what happened and what should happen next.
The Russian strikes hit several locations across Ukraine, including close to Poland's border. Just a day earlier, NATO intercepted 3 Russian fighter jets that flew into Estonia's airspace for 12 minutes. That's according to that country's foreign ministry. Let's get some analysis now from CNN senior military analyst and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Admiral James Stavridis. He's also a partner at the investment firm, the Carlyle Group. Admiral, always great to see you. The Estonian Prime Minister says his country has requested NATO Article 4 consultations after he described this violation as totally unacceptable. We'd seen an Article 4 just a week or so ago after some drones flew into Polish airspace, and intelligence officials are still trying to determine whether the Kremlin sent those intentionally or not. What would these Article 4 consultations, you think, entail?
Planes crossing borders, drones in NATO airspace, small incidents become strategic signals. NATO already intercepted Russian fighters over Estonia yesterday. This isn't random.
First and foremost, it's a total of 19 drones that flew into Poland. Seems highly unlikely to me that's accidental. And certainly manned aircraft breaking NATO borders, as you just reported, is hard to see as anything other than intentional. And I think there are reports also, Boris, of drones, Russian drones over Romania. So that's 3 examples in the last 5 days. The Article 4 consultations will set up NATO's response to these continuing incursions, and it should. Look, Putin is doing 3 things. He's trying to test the air defense.
Admiral Stavridis says there are 3 aims behind Putin's moves: probe defenses, deter support for Ukraine, and sow division inside NATO. All of those are dangerous and deliberate.
Tactically, see how capable NATO is of responding. Number 2, he's trying to get NATO to say, well, maybe we shouldn't send all that air defense equipment to Ukraine because we got Russia banging on our door. And thirdly, he's trying to create some divisions in the alliance, as nations will have different reactions and different levels of response. Generally, the further east you go, the closer you are to Russia, the more likely you are to want those Article 4 consultations to say, let's put up a pretty stern response to Russia that goes beyond just a memo. Let's get some jets in the air and get ready for action.
So what can NATO do right now? The Admiral lays out a 3-part response: beef up air defenses, strengthen Ukraine, and make it clear incursions will be met with force.
You wrote in a piece, an op-ed piece for Bloomberg this week, that these brazen incursions demand a NATO response in the skies. What are you hoping to see?
Number 1, the alliance increase its air defense posture. They're doing that. It's going to be called Operation Eastern Sentry. Number 2, get our air defenses up along NATO borders and in NATO capitals, but also continue to strengthen the Ukrainians. And third, tell Russia the next time one of your jets or drones fly over NATO airspace, we're going to shoot it down. I think this demands a kinetic response. I recognize
that last step is kinetic and risks escalation. But Stavridis is blunt. The aggressor is Moscow, not NATO. Weak responses risk emboldening further aggression.
That has the risk of escalation, but we need to remember who the aggressor is here. It's Moscow, not Brussels.
I also wonder what happens if we don't see that kind of response and we continue sort of plodding along as we have for not just weeks, but months. I mean, there was talk that there would be a bilateral meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, and that has not yet come to fruition. But now for months, there's been this promise from the White House that there would be some more forceful response, and we just haven't seen it. So what happens with that one?
We have got to see Washington link its arms with.
He also calls for Washington and Brussels to act in lockstep. More offensive capabilities for Ukraine and harder economic pressure on Russia and its enablers.
Brussels and do two big things, Boris. One is give the Ukrainians more offensive weapons capability so they can use it, not to go after Russian civilian targets, but rather go after the drone production facilities in Russia. Those are known targets, and we ought to help the Ukrainians go after them. And number two, even more importantly, and this is where Washington and Brussels need to be on the same sheet of music, we need economic sanctions against those nations who are continuing to deal with Vladimir Putin, and we ought to be confiscating Russian assets that are in Western banks that were confiscated 3 years ago when this whole thing started. So we have cards to play. I think Washington, and specifically President Trump.
In short, increase air defenses, arm, and enable Ukraine to strike back at the source and weaponize sanctions. If NATO doesn't respond decisively, these probes will only get bolder. I'll leave the question to you. What should NATO's next move be?